Good morning, class. Today we will start with the chapter Rulers and Buildings in your history book. Figure 1 shows the first balcony of the Kuthub Minar. Kutubuddin Aibak had this constructed around 1199. Now, do you think that it was constructed when Kutubuddin Aibak became the ruler of the Mamluk dynasty, or like who ascended the throne of Delhi, or was it done before he ascended the throne? Okay, I'll tell you the answer to this. It was built before he ascended the throne. He ascended the throne in 1206 and was the ruler till 1210 when he died while playing polo. Okay, so this was built along with the mosque which is there, which is known as Quwwatul Islam Mosque, and that was the first mosque which was built in India. And it is said that the material which was collected after demolishing around 27 Hindu temples, so that material was used in constructing this building, Qutub Minar, as well as the Quwwatul Islam Mosque. There you can see that there is one iron pillar. There are people who have like two opinion. One group believes that it shows that from that time on the Muslim rule began in India, or Islam came to India, whereas there is another group which disagrees with the previous one, and they feel that that iron pillar is to commemorate the victory of Islam. Okay, let's see. Notice the pattern created under the balcony by the small arches and geometrical design. If you have been to Qutub Minar, you must have seen the small arches and the geometrical designs, the designs which are made there. Can you see two bands of inscription under the balcony? These are in Arabic. Notice that the surface of the minar is curved and angular. Placing an inscription on such a surface required great precision. Only the most skilled craft person could perform this task. Remember that very few buildings were made of stone or bricks 800 years ago. What would have been the impact of a building like Qutub Minar on observers in the 13th century? So, you can see the building. If you have visited it, you must have noticed the small arches and the design geometrical pattern which is made on the wall. Then you can see the Arabic inscription which is there, and it is obviously, considering that time, it would have been very difficult, and the expertise is required to write an inscription like this. So that means the people who were there, they must have been very skilled. Very few buildings of stone or brick around 800 years ago. What would have been the impact of building like Qutub Minar on observers? So if you have observed it, you must have felt that how expert these people were who have been involved in making this beautiful building. Between the 8th and the 18th century, kings and their officers built two kinds of structures. The first were forts, palaces, garden residences, and tombs, safe, protected, and grandiose places of rest in this world and the next. The second were structures meant for public activity, including temples, mosques, tanks, wells, caravanserais, and bazaars. So there were two types of buildings which were constructed. One set was of palaces, garden residences, tomb, and the other was which included like mosque, temples, tanks, etc. Kings were expected to care for their subjects, and by making structure for their use and comfort. Rulers hoped to win their praise. Construction activity was also carried out by others, including merchants. They built temples, mosques, and wells. However, domestic architecture, large mansions of merchants, has survived only from the 18th century. So the kings were like it was expected that being a king, it was their duty to take care for the subject, take care of the subject, make structures, make the buildings which are for their use and comfort. Then the like construction activities were carried out not only by the kings but by the merchants also. They contributed in construction of the buildings like temples, mosques or wells. Engineering skills and construction. Monuments provide an insight into the technologies used for construction. Take something like a roof, for example. We can make this by placing wooden beams or a slab of stone across four walls. But the task becomes difficult if you want to make a large room with an elaborate superstructure. This requires more sophisticated skills. So it is like when you are making something, like if you can take the example, if you are going to make normal food, making rice and pulses will not be difficult. But if you are planning to make like paneer butter masala or paneer or chicken masala, then you need to have expertise and lot of skills are required. So same ways when we are talking about making a roof, it is easy, but if we are talking about making a roof on a superstructure and it has to be decorated, then expertise was required. Between the 7th and 10th centuries, architects started adding more rooms, doors, and windows to buildings. Roofs, doors, and windows were still made by placing a horizontal beam across two vertical columns, a style of architecture called trebuchet or corbelled. Between the 8th and 13th centuries, the trebuchet style was used in the construction of temples, mosques, tombs, and in buildings attached to large stepped wells, that is Baolis. If you have visited this Chota Imambara, you must have seen the Baoli. It is sort of a well which has steps all around it. People can go down, and it was meant for taking for taking bath and all. Okay, so temple construction in the early 11th century. The Kendriya Mahadev temple dedicated to Shiva was constructed in 999 by the king Dhangadeva of Chandela dynasty. Figure 3b is the plan of temple. An ornamented gateway led to an entrance and the main hall, that is Mahamandap, where dances were performed. The image of the chief deity was kept in the main shrine, that is Garbhagriha. This was the place for ritual worship where only the king, his immediate family, and priests gathered. The Khajuraho complex contained royal temple where commoners were not allowed entry. The temples were decorated with elaborately carved sculptures. So here we are talking about the construction of the temples in the early 11th century. So here Dhangadev, who had made a dedicated Kendriya Mahadev temple, it is dedicated to Lord Shiva, and it has the gateway which is very much ornamented, decorated beautifully. Then an entrance is there, a main hall, where initially what happened was that there were women who used to dance in front of the gods on the special ritual special functions or pujas. So and then there was Garbhagriha where the image of deity was placed, and in certain temple common people were not allowed, only the ruler along with his relatives were allowed. Then figure 4, Raja Rajeshwar temple at Thanjavur had the tallest shikhar amongst temples of its time. Shikhar is the topmost portion. Constructing it was not easy because there were no cranes in those days, and the 90-ton stone for the top of the shikhar was too heavy to lift manually. So the architects built an inclined path to the top of the temple, placed the boulder on rollers, and rolled it all the way to the top. The path started more than 4 kilometers away so that it would not be too steep. This was dismantled after the temple was constructed. But the residents of the area remembered the experience of the construction of the temple for a long time. Even now, a village near temple is called Charupalam, the village of the incline. So what happened was, like, since it was too high, the shikhar was too high. So what happened was, to obviously in those era they didn't have the what do you call the cranes, sorry, to carry these stones to the top. So what they did was, they made an inclined, like, plane, so that they could easily take it to the top. And when the temple was built, the different like after that they destroyed the inclined path which was there to carry the stones. So this was, like, obviously you can understand how difficult it would have been for carrying those big boulders of stone to make that shikhar. Two technological and stylistic development are noticeable from the 12th century. The weight of the superstructure above the doors and windows was sometimes carried by arches. This architectural form was called arcuate. You can see the figure, a true arch, that is the keystone. The center of the arch transferred the weight of the superstructure to the base of the arch. So this is the arch. You must have visited Chota Imam Bada in Bada Imam Bada, so you must have seen the arches there also. Limestone cement was increasingly used in construction. This was very high quality cement which, when mixed with stone chips, hardened into concrete. This made construction of large structures easier and faster. Take a look at the construction site in figure 6. So you can see how these things were constructed. This you can see in the figure 6. It is a painting from Akbarnama. Okay class, so that is all for today. Please do revise the chapter. Take care of yourselves. Be safe at home. Thank you.